Take a breath and take a plunge into Ocean Ideas, the podcast where trusted scientists, ocean advocates, and big thinkers share powerful stories and insights into our blue planet. Join Walbunja woman Jodi Edwards as she shares powerful stories of sea country, orcas as kin, and the matriarchal knowledge guiding Aboriginal ocean stewardship. A moving conversation on cultural revival, climate resilience, and the unbroken whispers of the sea.
When you talk about sea country and sea kin, what do you mean?
For me, sea country, and I'll get to sea kin, but it seems like an abstract idea for most people. But sea country is just a part of me. It's where I started. I started in a womb full of salty water, and from there I came out, and as a young woman standing, or young person, even child, standing on the shores and looking at the vast ocean, I knew automatically that we were related, and I could feel the pulse and the beat of the ocean, the heartbeat, and I knew and felt the currents of the blood that comes from the lakes and the rivers that flow through the arteries and the veins down into sea country that creates that heartbeat. And so I understood all of that from just looking and being at one with country. The deeper dive come as I grew to understand my kinship connection, the ancestors, my cultural rights and responsibilities to the creatures that they live under the water. And it starts with, we're all related with the whales and the dolphins, because in embryonic state, we all share a caudal tail. We don't get to keep ours, which is really unfortunate, but they do, and that's really cool. And we all have the same subcutaneous fat. I probably have a little bit more than
Join in the club.
And we all have skin. And our sea kin, matriarchs, and sea country is matriarchal country. And inside of that matriarchal country, we have been governed and led by some very, very powerful women that you may or may not know or will have heard of. Barangaroo. Barangaroo was a very, very strong woman, and she was the epitome, along with Krubi, of the Marn. And the Marn process is what is still living inside of us today.
What is that process?
The Marn is ancient practice for women around fishing. And, in the early setup of the colony, the very first law that was made for Aboriginal people was, in fact, that you couldn't touch women's fishing gear. It was against the law to steal it because, in fact, the Marn, the women, were fishing and they were feeding the colony. They were taking those medicines from the seaweed and from the shoreline and helping, the colony beat scurvy and beat some of those other difficulties they first found. And they were teaching them where to fish and how to fish, and they're the ones that teach the young kids how to make the fishing line. They weave their hair to make fishing line, to make fishing nets. They take fibres from particular barks and they massage it on their leg till it's fine enough to weave and make fishing nets. They sit on top of the headlands and they sing to the dolphins, and they take in deep knowledges around the ecology, around what is happening with this flower and that flower and how it relates to sea country, and they connect land, sea and sky country as one.
So the Unbroken Whispers project that you're collaborating on now, big project, multi-year project, big in all the ways, big across expanses of time, place, all the way up and down the east coast of Australia. What are the unbroken whispers that you're trying to reawaken?
So the Unbroken Whispers are the kinship connection that Aboriginal people have with sea country and sea kin. And we're predominantly looking at the southern whale. And for those in the room who just went, oh, she got it wrong, it's the southern right whale. We are now not calling it the southern right whale. It never was called the southern right whale. The right was inserted in because it was the right whale to hunt. And so we're extrapolating that back out. In different areas, it's called Konduli, and other countrymen have different names for that southern right whale. But we have gone back to, we want to call it the southern whale. We're also looking at humpback whales, and we're also looking at orcas, again, trying to push that entity around. We're not calling it the killer whale. The whale itself wasn't the killer, and it had a symbiotic relationship. And that's what we're really deep diving in Unbroken Whispers, is the symbiosis and the metaphysical relationship Aboriginal people have and continue to have with our sea kin that guide us and help us understand what we need to know and the mitigating circumstances that they may have that will help us and assist us in this vast issue we've got around climate change and the heating of the ocean, or the ocean fires as we call them.
What did those relationships and cultural protocols around sea kin and sea country mean for harvesting those species, for whaling practices, cultural whaling practices? And I wonder how reawakening some of those knowledges and songlines, how that might inform our conversation about conservation today.
So for us, inside, just imagine, many, many moons ago, in a time where the shine of the plants that sat beside the ocean allowed the water drops, one drop at a time, to filter in, and the harvesting of seaweed only came after the white flowers fell from the plants. And in that time, our women asked the Creator, Dharamoolan, if they could go into the sea because there were no law peoples in the sea. And it's the start of our connection and how we know sea country is matriarchal. And as we flowed and as we passed, we went into the sea and we became the orcas. And we know that we're the orcas because, as I said, we have the same subcutaneous fat, we share the same skin, we're both black, and some of us are white. No, but inside of that system of matriarchal, we understand that our children can be with us for as long as they need to be. And you know, some mums even get to pick who their sons are going to marry. Like, I know there's some people out there going, yep, I want to be an orca now. Those intricate ways in which we communicated, and our promise to Dharamoolan was we would never forget where we came from. We never forget that we're land dwellers, and therefore we must give back. You see, we have laws and regulations If you take something from country, you must give back to country. In our life, the orcas had a symbiotic relationship based on their promise to Durramulin, and that was to give back to country. So they drove and looked for the baleen whales. And when them baleen whales or humpback whales were sick and not going to make it, they were opportunistic, and they drove them into the bays where the men, our men, my great-great-grandfather would paddle out in bark canoes, not like those fiberglass ones that they were just talking about, bark canoes made from hand, and they would take that whale, they would hunt that whale, and they would bring him into shore, just the one, and they would dissect it, and all the rich, strong, beautiful meat was given to all of the elders in our community. The blubber, the oil, was smeared on our children to get rid of their winter greys and to keep their skin nice and soft, not hardened by Baba Wuri, the grandfather's son. And so in that time, we learnt we had a metaphysical relationship with us. Our women, as I said, they sang to those whales, they sang to the dolphins. They had a same relationship because dolphin is in the whale community, the whale family, and they too are our sea kin. And they would drive the salmon in, and we would take what we needed. As the men beached hauled, they would grab those salmon or those mullet, and they'd look back at the dolphins and they would throw just gently back to the dolphins a feed. And they would take what they need and they'd share it amongst the entire community. And then they would burn in the back of the sand dunes to let people know that place has been hunted now. It's time to replenish. And as those white flowers fell and the coastal wattle turned green, we knew it was time to move up the rivers, the tears of our women, and go back closer to the mountains. It was time to fish in the lakes and the estuaries. It was time to eat red meat, wallaby, echidna, kangaroo. It was time to allow sea country to replenish, restock, recharge. That's our relationship with country. That's our metaphysical, that's our responsibility. It's our right as women, sea women in our country. As I said, it's matriarchal, and so women are the rightful ones who need to speak for sea country.
What a powerful evocation of all that's been and might be again, because you are, Jodi Edwards, travelling up and down the coast, actually migrating with the whales as we speak over a couple of years, aren't you? Yep. And so just as we come to a question from the audience, what's the process that you're undertaking?
So the migration with the whales is to reawaken the man inside of our women, to reconnect the stories, to reassure the communities of our cultural kinship connection. Over many years, things have happened with our waters have been industrialised, commercialised. They're talking now that they want to pastoralise them, creating farms inside of them, and our people's voices have been suppressed. Our sea kin have been suppressed. We talk about whaling sites and people are now commercialising them, and you can buy, you can go to the Killer Whale Museum, you can go to the Killer Whale Cafe, and yet they were deep and intricate massacre sites, no different to people massacres that have happened across the world. And the resilience in sea country is the resilience we need to show. And so this project is not just about reawakening that and looking at what the ecological knowledges are that we need to mitigate climate change and the warming of our oceans, but the intergenerational knowledge transfer for our children and our children's children, because they are the creators of what we will leave behind and what they will have to deal with.
And how do you want... these aren't the same, but how do you want governments and also marine scientists to hear these stories, to relate to this knowledge?
You see, for me, I have sometimes get a bit perplexed about, what people have done and do. And so our ancient storylines and our ancient songlines flow along the currents and are transpired from the great migrators of the world, the whales who migrate, and they share their stories with the dolphins, and the dolphins are so playful and so happy, and they talk a lot. That's why I'm a dolphin. and what has been, instead of our storylines and our songlines flowing along the currents and the tides, we now have people talking about humpback highways. You've changed the narrative of what they are. And when you change the narrative of what it is, you risk changing what happens within. And so we're trying to share and be inclusive and taking away the this. As young people, we're taught at schools and inside of schools,
it's mine.
Don't copy.
It's all mine.
Don't copy.
Yeah.
And if it's one of the things that I have felt inside of science, and it's for a whole lot of reasons, they have this. This is our knowledge. This is our knowledge.
Right.
Whereas for Aboriginal people, it's more like this. It's our knowledge. But we want to be, and we want our children's to be the ones that have that knowledge and make the decisions on how that is shared and when that is shared and what is shared. So all the information that we are gathering, you hear all these terms, intellectual cultural property right, and lots of laws are made so that sits within non-Aboriginal organisations. So we are changing the narrative, and our intellectual property rights that we connect and collect go back and stay with the community. They're not ours. And they're not our universities. They belong to the community, and then what the outcome is scientists and marine scientists and whoever else, universities or government departments, if they want to know something about that country, they go to the countryman and they get that information from countrymen. Because, inside of the stories, while there's a story in the sea, it connects with the story on land. And that could be in a geological formation. And that geological formation connects with the star formation. And so we have that integral connection between land, sea and sky that makes the whole story. Inside of our communities, there's not one knowledge holder. There's not one person that holds the entire kinship story. Because if they did that and they passed, that story goes with them. Each person, each family, each community has a little bit of part of the story, and those stories can travel on the currents, and they are the unbroken whispers.
Wow, right? Sunday morning, here we are.
It felt like a bit of a sermon, didn't it?
Pretty powerful. We have time for one quick question and one quick answer. And we really need like 2 hours, don't we? Wouldn't it be amazing to do a sort of sit-in with Jodi over a couple of hours? Have we got a question? Oh, I should think so. One little question. Yes, thank you. We'll just get the mic to you.
So when you were talking about holding the knowledge and that scientists and people can go to that, how will they know about that? How are they to know that there is this source of knowledge and understanding, and so that they are drawing upon that?
Yeah. So inside of the Unbroken Whispers, the ripples connecting sea kin, that connection point will be how the community decides. So it could be via a website, or it could be via... we've been lucky enough to be able to, because we're mapping culturally important areas, it's something that's not... the government hasn't done. They've been mapping biological important areas, and so they've allowed us an input to place culturally important areas inside of their studies, which will give you a connection point to go, okay, if I want to know, the story of Kunduli, I can go to this community, and then from that community they will direct you into, the specifics of what you need to know. Because that knowledge isn't mine to share. That knowledge is, whilst I can share the story of orca because it's my cultural kinship, right, and it goes back, beyond 1788, I could not stand here and share the story of Kunduli or how sea country was created by women in Gumbaynggirr country or the story of Gari. So, yeah, there'll be drop points, there'll be websites, there'll be communities. What we're doing with communities now, we're running workshops where we're empowering elders to work with young people in our old style of learning, so that we work with the story of the local area. Then that story is taught to the kids through the song that traditionally would have been taught, the dance that goes with the song, that goes with the story, reconnecting the kids out on country, getting them out of, off game pads and iPads or whatever they're called, and getting them out, walking around those geological locations, and then performing back to the elders. And when those elders are sure that that knowledge is understood and the intricacies of that knowledge is understood, a new story is shared. And so in that place, we're making sure that intergenerational knowledge transfer goes beyond the lifetime of Unbroken Whispers and goes beyond the lifetime of Jodi Edwards.
And reaches out into the wider community, and that's its power. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing today and giving us your time to explain this hugely important and ambitious project. Really grateful. Please thank Dr. Jodi Edwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you learned something new today, make sure to share it and send this episode to someone else who cares. The more we understand the ocean, the better we can protect it.